everyone, I'm Susana Lay, a senior manager looking after digital delivery at AGL.
What's the one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting out?
So, one thing I keep thinking back on when I reflect is I wish someone had sat me down early on and said, hey, you know that long-term career journey that you've always dreamt about that looks linear or straight in your head? Yeah, no, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look more like a stock market, up, down, stagnant, down, then up again. So I think when I first entered the workforce, I always had dreamt of working in advertising. So moving to New York, Mad Men, Don Draper vibes, and I came out with a commerce degree and I majored in marketing. That was perfect, but I found it so hard to actually land a job in advertising. It was a few years of wondering why nobody even wanted to consider me or consider interviewing me, even though I had looked good on paper. So after a few years of frustration, I wondered, what is everybody else who's in advertising doing? What is their path, to get there? What has their journey been? What sets them apart? So I started digging around on LinkedIn, reaching out, connecting and speaking to people in the industry. And I found that there was a bit of a theme. So a lot of the people who were working in advertising had graduated from this award school. And I wondered, what is that? And it was this school that exclusively took in a few intake of 200 people across Australia, and I figured, how do I do that? How do I apply? How do I get there? And so I applied to this award school and got into that intake for that year, did the course, and I didn't even graduate from award school yet before applying for an advertising agency, had put that down on my CV. And that was my that was my foot through the door. So I think at the moral of this particular story is just find out what people are doing that you're interested in the industry that you're interested in. What are they doing? What are the steps that they're taking in their career path? That's some piece of advice that I wish someone had given me.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that made a significant impact?
So there have been so many defining moments in my career, but if I were to pick one, it would be early on when I was working on some really big tech projects as a project manager. I was handed a project that was already way over budget, so behind on timelines. The client was furious, and we needed to build a game on a web application, and it included a game show which was being recorded in a studio. So I think I went home that day and cried, thinking, how was I going to get this impossible project over the line? So after I had a really good cry, obviously sat down and thought about, okay, how are we actually going to do this? What's going to make it feasible? So we're already over on costs. We're already over with time and budget. So the only thing that we could really work with was probably the scope. So you're not going to get all of the bells and whistles. Had to really work with the team to manage the relationship with the client. So I think those were the things that I could focus on, and that's all I focused on, and making sure we could at least deliver something in terms of a game, and making sure we could actually record the game show in the studio. So I think there was a lot of resilience that I had built. There was a lot of tough conversations, but at the end of the day, I probably needed to be handed that project, and it really kind of defined and helped me understand who I was as a person and how I would process a difficult situation.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life? And what's your go-to strategy for overcoming them?
Again, I really wish someone had sat me down early on and said, hey, It's totally okay to mess up. Actually, it's more than okay. It's necessary. I think the whole idea of seeing failure as something positive was never really in my playbook to begin with, and I used to see it as this big, scary thing to avoid at all costs. But really, it's through those oops and tough moments that you learn the most. So I think in hindsight, I'd say my entire career has been built on challenges and setbacks, those tough conversations, those tough clients, that job I really wanted but didn't get. When I look back, I think those moments were uncomfortable, they were upsetting, but it really taught me that resilience and that grit and prepared me to be who I am today. So I do like to tackle challenges head on. But I will look at taking a step back, breaking things down. I know that I make better judgments and decisions when my mind isn't so clouded. So if something is challenging or bothering me, I'll step away, maybe do some boxing, yoga, or even have a shower, because that's where the best thinking happens, and then come back to tackle something with a new mindset. And then I really lean heavily on my circle for advice. So my partner, my mentors, my friends, and my family. I've had some really amazing guidance over the years, and it's made all of the difference. And then lastly, I always keep the end game in sight. So always focusing on where you want to end up is really important, especially when the going gets tough. So it's really easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day, but keeping the bigger picture in mind helps you push through. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about perspective. So embracing the tough times, seeking out some of those challenges, and sticking to your long-term vision. That's probably what growth looks like to me. So I hope this gives a bit of a boost to our listeners and at least something to think about in their own journey.